Okay,
Michelle.
cool. Everybody, thanks for coming today. We're really excited and really um, excited about letting you see what Home Sale Plus is about. We've got a special guest today, Mr. Tom Atwood,
Hello,
the
everybody.
owner and lead listing agent with the Atwood team. I'm Jerry Silverman. Zach Silverman, who is my son, is also on with Home Sale Plus. And just to give you a little bit of background, we launched this platform in 2020. We've done north of 1,500 listings on it since, most of them coming in the last 2 years. We're getting a lot of agents and brokers and teams calling us because I think a lot of people realize that giving the seller a choice is the way to go. People want something that's different. You have a lot of value when you go into a listing appointment and you can offer them something that other people aren't offering them. So, without further ado, we're going to show you what we do. The benefits to you guys are tremendous. This is a platform that's not just a tool to sell a single property. Even if a property doesn't sell on the platform, you still get extreme value. This is going to separate you from the competition, help you get more listings, help you sell more of your stale listings. Using open houses, you can generate a ton of buyer leads and listing leads. We give you free professional photography, customized marketing materials for free, and there's never any cost to you. There's no subscription fee or admin fees. So we do a couple of things. The one thing that we do is our flagship service, which is what we're going to present today, which is FlexBid. FlexBid is a standard sale in the MLS. When you're accepting the offers on our platform, your listing will go in as a standard offer, directing agents to place their offers on the platform online. Everything they want to put online in terms of price, days to close, inspection, finance contingencies, they want to ask for concessions, if they want to offer the seller sweeteners, free rent backs, whatever. Everything is done online. It's very efficient. You don't need to write a contract unless you're the winning buyer agent. And for the first time, the beauty of it is everything is totally visible to everyone. So to buyers, buyer agent, listing agent, seller, general public, everybody can see all the offers. There's never any obligation for a seller to accept an offer, regardless of how high the price is or how great the terms are. The seller can accept any offer if they do. It doesn't have to be that it's the highest price, just like any standard sale. And the typical offer period is 14 days. However, in the agent remarks we give you for your listing, it gives the deadline, which is typically 2 weeks. However, it tells them at seller's discretion, the seller can accept an offer early at any time. So it's totally flexible for a seller. It's 2 weeks or less, no obligation. And when they see the benefits, they pretty much just close. This is a really powerful pitch to a seller. We also do auctions. A lot of agents, I realize, have never used auctions. Auctions are great. We're not going to talk about them today past this slide, but auctions are basically for when you have a property that can't be financed with a standard home loan. It's going to be cash, hard money. The seller locks in to a reserve price. If the high bid goes to that reserve or over, they have to sell. There are no contingencies allowed. The buyer pays all closing costs. The buyer pays a 10% buyer premium added to the high bid. And out of that 10%, you guys get 4% if there is a buyer agent and 5% if there is no buyer agent. So auctions are very lucrative and the right fit for certain types of properties. Now, the next slide, we have our friend John Newman on. This was John's property. So John had this property sitting for a couple of months. It was at 460,000 when he transitioned it to the platform. He put it on the platform and started with a price of 325, and where he was getting no energy, no excitement, offers weren't coming in. As soon as he put it on the platform, he started getting showings. I have in here that he had over 150 showings. John, if I'm correct, I think you said you had over 200, or was it something like that?
Yeah, it was well over 200, Jerry.
Wow. I think you had the record on this one. So in 2 weeks, ended up with over 200 showings, 27 offers, people competing against each other, seeing each other's offers, and he was able to get a contract price in 2 weeks of 458,000. So we see a property sitting at 460,000 and it just can't get the energy. We can't get the demand. Using a price strategy like John did at 325, it pushed the entire market out to the property. And then once that happened, it creates competition and everyone sees everyone else and they want it more. And you end up doing, I mean, when you think about it, sitting at 460 probably would have gone down and backward and sold it for less. In 2 weeks, they got their price. This is an example of one of our friends at Keller Williams Preferred Properties, Cynthia Davis. She had a property that was perfect for auction. It's in a great area in Glendale, but it needed total renovation. So it's going to be bought by an investor or someone that has the ability to pay cash. And so we put it on as an auction. Her client signed with a 270,000 reserve price. And that meant she had to sell if it hit 270 or went over. So in 2 weeks, she had over 100 showings, and over a 3-day bidding period, there were 175 incremental bids, and it went to 328,000. Her client was blown away, 58,000 more than she'd hoped for. And the buyer added the buyer premium and paid all the closing costs. Cynthia made great money. The thing with an auction is you make really good money even on smaller properties. But this is an example of an auction and why you'd use it. So our whole platform is based on why is there no transparency in real estate? You know, everything else you and I do, when you talk to a seller, they're doing the same things. Whether they're buying a car, buying stocks online, buying travel tickets, telemedicine, or taking an Uber, they're doing it the way the digital world, what it gives them. The ability to get on your laptop, your smartphone, your tablet, get information very quickly and transact, but not real estate. Real estate is firmly stuck in a 100-year-old model. And the bottom line is that model is not good for anybody. It's not good for the buyers. It's not good for the seller, as we're going to see. And it's not good for our profession because it breeds contempt. It's not good. It's not trustworthy when everything's hidden. So you guys have all had buyers. You go out with a buyer, you take them out. The buyer can be well motivated, can be, qualified for 100,000 over the list price of the property, but they don't necessarily get the property. And even though they really want it, and the reason why is because when they don't know what they're competing against, human nature is they don't want to the average person won't just throw away money. The average person will say, what if somebody is not higher than this and I'm throwing an extra 20,000 out? I'm just competing against myself. And so a lot of the times you write a contract, or I would do this, I'd write a contract and I know that it may not be the most competitive offer. And then later, 2 days later, they come back with a best and final. I go back to my buyer and say, hey, best and final, do you want to raise your offer, change your terms? They shrug their shoulder. They say, why would I do that? Tell them to tell me what I need to do, And of course, they don't, and the buyer doesn't raise their offer, and you find out they lost. And then sometimes you see later, a couple weeks later, when it settles, that buyer was only a couple thousand higher than your buyer, and your buyer says, "Why didn't they come back to us? We would have paid more." That seller left money on the table, And so it's a horrible situation because in that situation, the most motivated buyer who was capable didn't win, and although it was frustrating for the buyer, it's so much worse for the seller because I had buyers where that happened. And then the third property they find and we get it and they go, I'm so glad we didn't get that other one. But you know who lost on the other one? The seller. Because if buyers are guessing and they're not going to their best and highest, the sellers are not maximizing the sale of that property. And they only have one chance,
Hey,
right?
Jerry,
Yes,
could I give you a reverse example that I experienced just yesterday?
sure.
It was pretty cool. So, like you're saying, buyers or agents feel a little timid on recommending to their clients to go higher when they're not sure what's going on. I actually had a buyer's agent on one of my flex bids say, look, we've got the highest bid on the platform. Is the seller just going to wait until the end of the flex bid period? And I said, well, let me look into that for you, Sonia. And I looked into it and I said, well, just so you know, with the amount of commission you're requesting and the seller help, you're actually not in first place. And I walked her through that. And the cool thing was it was all transparent. So it works the other way too.
Right. And also she knows that you're not just telling her that, right?
Correct.
Because when people see it with their own eyes, I mean, that's like when you have a buyer and they want you to put an offer on a property where you say there's 5 offers and they say it's above list. Your buyer can't qualify above list and they're telling you to go place an offer because, and I'm just using that as an example because nobody trusts what people tell them when they can't see everything, you know? So this is something that's really powerful, like you just pointed out. And look, the platform was built for this reason. I've sold thousands of properties in my career. I saw myself and my buyer agents had buyers, like I was saying before, where a buyer sees a property settle. They say, why didn't they come back to me? It settled for 3,000, 5,000, 2,000 more, 10,000, and I would have paid more. And it just doesn't make sense because if that buyer would have paid more, I knew that sellers were leaving money on the table. And so that's why we created Home Sale Plus. Home Sale Plus is a dynamic online platform where for the first time, buyers, seller, everybody in the transaction can see everything in real time. And it's so simple and it's so efficient because the buyer agents are going to see in your agent remarks that we give you that all offers will be accepted on Home Sale Plus for this period of time, typically 2 weeks. And all they need to do, there's a little link that they pull and they click and they paste in their browser and they go to register for your specific property at the platform. And it takes a couple of minutes and then they upload a pre-approval letter or a bank statement, depending if they're paying cash or financing. And then they put their client's offer in. They put in the price, the down payment, the days to close, the inspection, financing, if they're going to pay cash. And then they're off to the races. They can then put in their any type of comments they want in the comment box, whether it's my buyer needs a seller concession or my buyer wants to give your seller a free rent back or remove their appraisal. And what happens when you click on the blue box next to that buyer number to that deal, you'll get any comments that are down here will come up in a box. So let's say that I click on this blue box and I see that this 615 offer needs 3% seller help. Then I go to this 610 and I see they're not asking for anything. Well, I know that this offer is better than this offer, and everyone knows that. So apples to apples, everyone can compete head on, seeing everything in real time and making changes in just seconds. And what happens is buyers, when they see these, I mean, we hear from buyer agents all the time that want to learn how to use our platform to list properties because they have a buyer and they see their buyer perform in a way that they wouldn't in a standard listing. So, they get the notification, they say, hey, I'm not going to go any higher. That's my offer. I'm done. Let's see what happens. And then when they get the notifications on their phone that people came in higher, they call their agent. We hear this time and time again. They said, go higher, and they won. And that buyer would not have done that in a traditional setting where they're offering blindly. And that means that seller would have left money on the table. So, everybody loses in the blind transaction. In this transaction, everybody wins. A seller knows for fact when it ends that they absolutely can see who's willing to pay the most money with the best terms. We use a pricing strategy like I was showing you on John's, where instead of starting at top of market, and John's is a great example, you're sitting there at 460 and you can't get any energy. And the only thing you can do is lower the price. And, a couple weeks, you lower the price again. What we do is we give you a strategy where, like John did, he started at 325, artificially low. His seller would never accept that offer, although he's allowed to. We don't know what his seller will accept, but it starts at what is an artificially low price, typically what a seller won't accept. And what that does, it shocks the market. So what happens is everyone sees that when they're looking on Zillow or Homes or Realtor, whatever site they like to go. They see that property. They see what other ones are going for. They see it's a beautiful property, and they call their agent, and they're focused on that property. Every other property in the neighborhood is going to go into the shadows in their mind. They're going to make a direct run for your property, for your listing. And that's what happens. And that's your job as an agent. Your job as an agent is to create a market. You're supposed to market the property. And that is the most powerful way to get price discovery quickly. We average over 100 showings on vacant properties in 2 weeks. These are just some examples around the Maryland area and different areas, different sizes, different shapes. We've now worked in about 6 states, and it doesn't matter if it's a $100,000 row home in Baltimore City or a $2 million property. The strategy works. I sold one for 1.597 recently, and that one we started at 995,000. I was able to push 74 people through there. And I never would have gotten that kind of traction if I priced it up high. Never. They would never have gotten that price. And you're presenting to a seller, you're showing them, like, if you and your neighbor are both selling your homes and you both have homes that are comparable in value and you both want around 500,000, your neighbor uses a method with an agent listing at the MLS with a traditional pricing strategy and method, and they put it on at 525 because the seller wants some negotiating room, which is horrible for a seller, putting it up higher. And over, a couple weeks, they get maybe 5 or 10 people through and no real data. And then, you're using me, I'm listing your home on Home Sale Plus, and I'm going to start it at 395 because I want the entire market to come out. I push over 100 people through your home in 2 weeks. Who do you think is going to get a better outcome, you or your neighbor? Right? But naturally, the sales is a numbers game. It's the law of sales. If I drop this pen, it's the law of gravity says it's going to drop. Sales is the same. It's the law of sales. If I can push 100 people through your home instead of 5, you're going to get the best outcome. There's just no doubt about it. And not only am I going to create a market for your property, and then once I get those people and they start registering, they start competing at the highest level of knowledge, knowing what they need to do to compete. When you tell me to accept an offer, that's what you're getting. That's the cherry on top. There is zero compensation, zero commission coming out of the price you see when you tell me to accept an offer. Now, at this point, most sellers will say, well, that sounds unbelievable. It's great. Like, how does it work? It's very simple. When a buyer and a buyer agent register, they get the rules of the game. And the way that this works is everyone is showing the net to the seller before compensation. And everyone else that's competing is looking at that number. So this is the net that the seller's going to receive before compensation. They still have to pay their mortgage. They still have to pay their property taxes, any other closing costs, but the net before compensation. And so the buyer agent can see, if they go in, their buyer says, hey, I want to go to 500,000, beat that 495. They can put in under net to seller 500,000. They can see that my commission was 2.5 here. The platform fee is 1%, and then they're going to fill in whatever their commission is. And because whatever their buyer agreement says is what their buyer's willing to pay them. They put that in, it shows them total contract price. In this case, with 6% added, 530,000. So if the buyer says, I'm good with 530, they click, they go to the screen, they review, and they submit their offer. There's nothing different for the buyer. The commissions come off the seller side of the sheet at settlement, but when you're presenting to a seller, it is so powerful because you will hear FSBOs say, hey, if the buyer wants to add the commission, I'm fine with it. Buyer's always paying the contract price. Commissions are always coming out of the contract, but when it's framed this way, it's very powerful. Instead of what am I giving up, they feel like, hey, if that's what I'm getting, and I have no obligation, right? So if I don't like any number, I don't have to accept an offer. Nope. Most sellers will say to you, like we wrote the script, you're going to hear it. They're going to say, why wouldn't I do this? How can I lose? Like, why wouldn't I try this? 2 weeks or less. If I like the number, there's no commission coming out of that price. Tom, do you want to, I'm going to go here to some of your stuff. Just tell me when to turn the page.
Yeah, sure, guys. I wanted to give you a couple real life examples. So I've had some, what we would call as listing agents, some easier properties to sell, some tougher properties to sell. some in the city, some in the county. So I know some of you are wondering, well, when do I decide to use Home Sale Plus? And I would say it works everywhere. On this example here, we took over a listing in Towson that an out-of-town agent had mailed an estate package to. And because this person was advertising themselves as an estate expert, they got the listing. Well, they overpriced it. The seller had done some painting and put a cheap kitchen in and just really polished it up, like some estate sales do. They listed it at 579. Then they reduced it to 553. They were on the market 129 days with this agent. And until we took the listing over, and in 29 days, we finally got it sold. It was a tougher property. The seller got a little poisoned by the fact that when it was a brand new listing, they got a quick contract from a first-time home buyer, but the property failed on inspection because the home needed a new roof, a new HVAC. The back of the lot sloped off like a cliff. You've seen these houses, so it was overpriced. So what we did to rectify that, I originally thought, and I think this might be my first or second deal with Home Sale Plus, I thought, well, this is probably tailor-made for an auction. And Jerry counseled me that I really think since this is a house that can be lived in, you're going to get a lot more action if we go with the flex bid method, because we did it as an auction at first and we only got cash buyers. So we opened it up, and the power was we could at least get cash buyers on a house like this, because this is a 6 to a 650 neighborhood if everything is maxed out. But we did the flex bid and we started out at 399. And I got to tell you guys, we had over 58 agent showings. You can see that there. Plus, our team runs a really tight open house strategy where we were running open houses like Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Our team members were picking up a ton of leads, and actually this was such a tough property to sell. The buyer that we finally got that was highest and best, believe it or not, had a home sale contingency. Well, we were able to list their house in Parkville, get it sold really quickly, and then our team member brought the buyer to Vailwood. So we actually got three sides out of this one deal. So I just wanted to let you guys know that we're still working with leads from the open houses off of this property. And we were able, because there was evidence of multiple offers. Jerry, you can flip to the next screen. I think there's another Vailwood screen there. We had about 6 offers. This screenshot only shows you the 3. But if you were to scroll further down, you'd see the others. There were several cash offers, but it helped push, as Jerry was saying, the ultimate offer up, so that we found the truly motivated buyer, and they were net to seller 424. Now, they did have a home sale contingency, but they ended up waiving appraisal, buying as is. Our team vetted their property really closely to make sure we could sell it quickly, and it all just came together. I would say it's rare that we would take a home sale contingency, but once in a while you do have a tougher property, and I would say if we went traditional on this one, we'd be dead in the water. If you want to go to the next slide. This is another one that was a tough one too. I started out traditional on this one. The Mockingbird property is in a community called Tanyard Springs down in Glen Burnie, and I'm sure John Newman knows this community pretty well. They've done probably 10 to 12 waves of new construction through Tanyard Springs over the last 10 to 20 years. So we're competing against new construction, newer townhomes, stuff that has 2023, 2024 fixtures, all the things. And this was like a 2006 build, a Ryan home. Really nice house, but it was a little dated, in perfect condition. And I recommended a price of, I said, the value of this home, folks, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, is probably around 440, 450. And they said, Tom, we want to hire you, but if anyone can get us more money, it's you. We want you to start at 479. So we started traditional. We were dead in the water. Meanwhile, these folks had a brand new villa being built down the street by Ryan Homes, because they're getting up in years. They want one level living, and it was all contingent upon this house selling. They were about to fire me to allow a friend to rent their house. And I said, guys, let me do this. The best thing to do is not to have a $450,000 rental property. That's a forced rental. I would much rather you use your equity to buy 2 lower price rentals if that's what you want to do. Give me 2, 3 weeks. Give me a chance to talk to you about this strategy. And we were able to put it on. We had to actually do 2 waves of FlexBid, which is rare. We started out, I think, on this one at 325, and we were getting low bids. So we actually hit the reset button on this one and went to 399. And showings you're going to see on this one were really tough because the wife was going through cancer treatment. She had 3 little dogs that she had to manage. We could only get people through during our open houses and scheduled time blocks. So I want to tell you, like, some of the listings are not easy to sell in this market because we're getting some folks who have to sell who necessarily don't want to sell. But I don't think I would have sold this house without FlexBid and Home Sale Plus. We were able to move, the highest bidder up to a 450 price. And what finally, that's a contract price. I think you can go to the next screen, Jerry. What finally got that one buyer up, and because the sellers, they were even talking about still wanting more and crying about, you'll see in this picture, the solar panels they bought, how they paid $21,000 for the solar panels. They had a payoff. They didn't lease these solar panels. Finally, their neighbor down the street with the same exact house was selling traditional. They lowered their list price traditionally to 438. Husband called me back later that night and said, Tom, is that offer still on the table? I said, yes, it is. And we took it down. But you can see how the other offers net to seller were in the mid threes to upper threes, and we were able to push the ultimate motivated buyer to the highest price of 428. And they're on the other side now. They settled on their new home, and it's really funny what people get emotional about. They can't stop thanking us for what we did for them on this sale. Go ahead and hit the next one, Jerry. This is one that's currently on the market. I just want to show you right now, we've had 42 showings on this split level in Pasadena. We've had over 50 showings for our open houses. This is probably a 4 to 425 house contract price. Right now, we've got 7 offers on this property, 10 registered buyers with still like 8 or 9 days left. And we're just picking up tons of business from all the folks that are unrepresented coming into this. It's really great. Go ahead, Jerry, hit me with the next screen. And I just want to show you the evidence. Right now, our highest bid is at a 395. So we're coming into the zone of where we're in deal territory here. And like Jerry said, a seller does have the option to end the competition early if they want to. So I suspect, and this was something I didn't pick up at first until Jerry said, well, Tom, you got like 10 registered buyers for that property and you got 7 offers, and the light bulb went off like, oh, there's a couple people waiting in the tall grass back there ready to pounce, right, Jerry?
Yep. And
So
I see. Yep. Good.
yeah, and I just want to say, so then I started thinking, wow, I can't just let the platform. I want you guys to know you still have to be a listing agent. You still got to work this thing. So I'm thinking, oh, okay, I'm going to start working these people against each other. I'm going to call Joe and say, hey, I'm not sure if you noticed, Joe, but Susan just kind of upped her bid. You might want to get back with your client and see if they still want to, continue to compete for this property. I mean, you're in the running, Joe, but now you're in second place. Or I could call the registered buyers, those agents, and say, hey, look, I just want to let you know things are starting to escalate a little bit. I just want to see if your client's still interested in placing an offer on the platform. And then some people will say, guys, well, I want to shut this thing down and I'm going to write you an offer for 425. I need to know, will your seller accept that? We have to say, look, I really can't answer for the seller, but what I would say would give you the best chance at that is, and I'm going to save you about 2 hours, you don't have to write a 50-page contract. Just upload your pre-approval letter and put that offer on the site. We want everyone to register and put their offer on the site because it's going to create a domino effect with everyone else's there. So once you kind of go through and you learn the basics, Then you start figuring out the nuances of the system and working the game within the game. Jerry, did you want to speak to that?
Yeah, I mean, working it, I mean, this is one thing. The platform brings you great efficiencies, but what we've seen is when we have great agents like Tom who are working it, you can really just, with that kind of, um, experience and that type of knowledge and working this platform. I mean, Tom has settled. We had 4 deals settled in the last 2 weeks from the platform. He's got several more under contract. He's got about 8 on the platform that are live. And as he was saying, I know in some of the other ones too, you got the buyer agent.
Yeah.
The team members got the buyer agent, and you're signing buyer agreements. This thing, we have agents that are giving us testimonials, just sending us, unsolicited. They're telling us, in open houses, they're picking up 10 new buyer agreements. They put 7 of them through their in-house lender. They've got buyers that want to sell that are saying, I want what you're doing. No one else is doing this. No one else is. They come to the open house. They're setting up tents outside and letting them in group by group. And the kind of energy and the excitement, the sellers, the neighbors, they're coming over and saying, I want you to list my home when I'm ready. And there's another thing about it too. When like I had one agent who said, I took the listing from, was sitting for 3 months with another agent. My client said she had no showings when that agent listed her property over 3 months, no showings. She put it way too high, obviously, in a market that's soft. And what I was able to do, my client was super happy. I didn't sell the property, but she got people in. She saw people. She saw 7 offers, and it led her in 2 weeks. It gave her the data to say, okay, plan B. I don't have to sell right now. She refinanced her through her in-house lender, so got a deal for the in-house lender, right? Helped her client, number one, got a deal though for the in-house lender, and then leased the property for her. And you better believe that woman is going to be a client for life, because this agent helped her and showed her something no one else could help her with. So, even when you don't sell a property, you can monetize the platform. You can take advantage of the open houses and create buyer leads, tons of them. I mean, I can't tell you how many texts and emails I get saying, this is incredible. I had 50 people come through. I signed up 6 people, 5 people, 8 people. We hear this every week. You need tools like this. You need tools like this. And when you're a good agent and you know how to work it, it's an automated system. But when you put your expertise around it, you are giving a seller something that no one else has given them. And it's really, really powerful. And it's just exciting.
And oh, by the way, you should be able to make more money while you're doing this process too. So I just want to let you know, this is the Coralie property. This is a snapshot of my listing agreement. I was competing against 2 other agents. Now you'll see that we put 9% in as our standard commission. You guys might fall off your chair at that. We're going to ask for it, guys. We're not timid, but I was competing against 2 other agents. So guess what? I gave this seller a 50% reduction in their commission to 4.5%. So that's 3.5% to our team, 1% to Home Sale Plus. And then I advertise 0% upfront co-op. Now, in the old days, I would think, oh man, I kind of feel like a curmudgeon putting 0 points on the street for my fellow agents. And I could understand why you might think that. So the script is, when an agent says, Tom, what are you offering on this property? I'm going to say, well, the great news is there's no upfront promise commission. You can put in whatever your buyer agency agreement dictates. Just fill it into the offer screen. Not one person out of probably 20 to 30 agents that's asked me that question has balked. Now, on the flip side, it also allows me to appear to be more competitive with the seller, because the other agents were, thinking about commission, and they were talking about it. We were talking about a total commission. So there is a nuance here. Other agents were at 5 or 5.5 or 6 or 6.5. So I was able to be competitive and probably actually earn a higher listing commission than my competition. And oh, by the way, this is our team's flat fee that only gets paid at settlement. So I do charge $10.95, $11.95 for sellers. So go ahead, Jerry, to the next one. So that was competing. Now here's one that we just took over. 63 showings in just a matter of days. We've been on the platform for 2 weeks. We're actually 63 showings and probably 40 to 50 people in the open houses. And you can go ahead and flip to the next one, Jerry. This one, we're starting to get a little more bold as my knowledge, and I've been through a couple of these appointments, and the timing was right, and I felt like I was ready. I had someone leaning in, ready to sign and ready to hire me. I gave them a huge discount again. I went from 9%, but I went to 5% this time. So that's 4% to the team and 1% to Home Sale Plus. I don't know how, Jerry, you work for this cheap, but I just got to thank you. You're just too generous to us agents. So an $11.95 admin fee. And when you do the math on a $350,000 property, that $11.95 extra might actually push your 5% to 6%. You just gotta, or 5.5%. You just got to do the math. But I want to show you, as I'm gaining more confidence with anything, as you feel more confidence, and confidence will close, and people are going to say, wow, this is an authority sitting in front of me. They see the value and they're willing to pay for that value. So,
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah, it is. When you are showing them something that no other agent has shown them, and everyone's showing them the same thing they've seen over and over, they're in a box. It's like we're doing, everyone's doing it the same way, and you come with tremendous value. Your value is just not even quantifiable because there's nothing to measure it against. So you're going in with something, and it's 2 weeks or less, going to get you the best price. Don't have to accept any offer. You now become someone who is super valuable in their eyes. So your value goes up. And if you're like Tom, you know how to get your value. So,
Yeah.
oh,
Here's our coming soon listing in Towson. This one's being worked on right now. We're painting, we're refinishing floors. It'll probably go on the market third week in August. And I'm like, now I'm feeling really confident. I gave these people another discount off of 9% at 5%. So we'll keep 4 and $11.95 admin fee. And I always get everyone to initial there. I want them to see that. And I explained to them, and this is our flat fee, and it only gets paid to you at settlement. I want them to initial by the flat fee so they can never say, I didn't understand what I was signing, or I don't remember that flat fee. I can always, send it back to them and say, yes, we talked about that during our meeting, and here's where you initialed off by it. So I just want to show you guys, like, this is going to help out on traditional listings that are sitting, right? You know that feeling like, ooh, I don't even want to talk to the seller this week because I'm afraid if I talk to them, they're gonna go in a different direction. I would say take any of your older listings and learn this process. I'd be happy to help you out with those conversations, and let's get them transitioned to a flex bid listing. And the irony here is, I bet you half of your listing agreements, you're actually going to not only get the property sold, but increase your listing commission. Usually we think, oh, to keep the listing, we got to do something. We got to make a concession. No, we're going to actually put something in front of the seller that they've never heard from before from another agent. It also works to get you a ton of extra clients from the open houses. You're going to get buyer deals. You're going to double end some of these deals. I would definitely suggest doing marketing around the neighborhood, because if you invite other folks, because we know industry odds are, if there is one home that gets sold in a subdivision, there's 1 or 2 sellers on average waiting for the evidence to see if that home will sell. And I would say 30 to 40% of the people walking through your open houses are buyers. Sorry, I had an incoming phone call. Are sellers. So they're waiting for that evidence. And guess what? If you're door knocking and setting flyers out in the neighborhood and your sign game is strong, those sellers are walking in to kind of interview who they may think about listing their next home. So that's there. Let alone, do you want to just go right after FSBOs and expireds and canceleds and tell them something that they've never heard before? This could really expand your book of business. Are you in a market where things are a little challenging right now? God, parachute me in. I want to go to that place where all the other agents are down in the dumps, scratching their head, going, I don't know what's going on here, but this market is tanking. Well, they've already taken themselves out of the proverbial game. You could parachute in with this strategy and just get with the seller one-on-one and say, look, I can't guarantee what the home is going to sell for in this market, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, but what I can guarantee is you're going to know what the buyer pool's opinion of the value of your home is, like it or not. We're going to achieve what Jerry says is price discovery. And after 100 people come to the house, there's no good market or bad market. There's just a market. It doesn't matter if rates are at 10% or 2%, there's still a market. So I just want to let you guys know our goal is to take that house that would be, we'll just say a typically a $500,000 house, and everybody that could be in that possible buyer pool, we want them to magnetically come to our property. So then you get into, well, what should I price this property at? Jerry will recommend sometimes 40% below what we perceive the value to be. That works a lot of times. Sometimes it might just be a couple clicks below. If things are moving at 500, but maybe taking a month, month and a half, and you're seeing some settlements at 510, 500, 490 with 10 coming back, I don't know, maybe 469.9 if we know we're in a homogeneous neighborhood where, yes, this house would go gangbusters. Maybe you don't have to reduce it to 399. So I'm still kind of getting the touch and the feel on pricing too. So I wanted to talk to you guys about that. But the goal is if there's 100 people in that buyer pool in that window of time that would consider a listing like yours that you're about to put on the market, let's not get 10 of them out to the property. Let's get them all there. And in a 2-week period, over 2 weekends, the sellers will know from the evidence of you holding the open houses, you discussing the showing reports with them, that you bled that whole buyer pool dry and everyone that could be in the market saw your home and this is what they're saying. Then all we know after that point, guys, if the seller still thinks their home is worth more money, we're just waiting for new buyers to parachute into the market. And that's a real slow drip. And I think at that point you have the evidence behind you to back up your recommendations and get that home sold. Jerry?
Absolutely. And there's we're gonna, by the way, we're gonna have a training session, and the link is gonna be dropped in. Ilana has it to drop in, if it might be in there now, to in the chat, that will get you to next Wednesday night at 6 p.m. We typically have these training sessions at Wednesday nights starting next Wednesday at 6 p.m. and typically every week at that time. And then we can set up smaller groups, but we'll get into more details in that. We'll get over, your addendum to your listing agreement and the next steps and how to get started. And, when we order photography, once again, it's free. If you have a new listing, we're covering the professional photography on it. And there's a lot of great benefits as we go back to the original page that I showed you. So, yeah.
And Jerry, if I could jump in, Jim McNulty had a question. What is your strategy for recommending a reserve price versus what you might have listed traditionally? So just to clarify, there will be agents who think when they're showing your properties, Jim and everybody, that this is an auction. So Jerry will train you on the nuances of FlexBid is not an auction. There's no reserve price. The seller's not obligated to accept any offer, but they do have the option to accept any offer prior to the expiration of the FlexBid period. But like I was saying before, if I was in a community where I've got 5, 6 houses that are similar that have all sold for a baseline, I may or I may not reduce it so much. I still might. It's almost like based on the situation. If I have a tough listing to sell, I may reduce it 40% and let it rip. Jerry would probably side on the strategy of just reduce it and let it rip. But, this is kind of a learning experience for me too. I'm still relatively new to FlexBid. We're just having a lot of initial success. That's why once or twice we've had to stop it and start it a second time. But I think the majority of the times If you go two weekends, long, whether that's 14 days or 17 days, and you're manning those opens and you're manning the phones and you're doing your prospecting and you're working the agents who are on the platform, I think good things will happen.
Definitely. And yeah, I do always use the phrase, you hear me say it all the time, you can never be too low, you can only be too high. Well, I can give you an example. I had somebody put a property on in Bowie and great property, brand new construction. It was actually a unique situation. And we put it, they said it was worth, in the high sevens and they wanted to start it at seven. I think we started 749. I said, they asked me what I thought. I thought 675. I said 675. I said, if you go too high, you're not getting the result. They sat for 2 weeks, didn't get a lot of action. They took it off the market for a week and then called me and said, okay, we want to put it back on at 675 at your suggestion. They put it on and they got an offer in 5 days. They actually stopped it early because that price stimulated, the true market value quickly. And so, and also another thing is you're going to learn, and this is what you're going to learn in the training and more, and then as you start getting experience using it, that, sometimes a seller might want X, like 550. You look at it and you think it's more like a 5. And the whole trouble you have in a traditional listing is you're trying to split hairs between that gap, and they don't want to hear it. What we do, the beautiful thing is say, hey, I'm not telling you lower the price. I'm giving you a price strategy. I'm going to put it on at 425. So I had one where an agent put it on at, hey, we're like, they want 550. Let's put it on 4. They're okay with 475. Well, 475, the market appeared to think it's probably in the range 475 to 500. Well, guess what? They didn't get the action. We put it back on at like 425 and they got 485 because that's what it was worth.
Yeah.
And so it's very important. I'm just going through some things that you're going to get more in depth in the training, but pricing strategy, you got to shock the market. One thing that I like to do, Tom, when I get somebody and they say, what are we going to start it at? I want 420 net, it's 420 net, 295. Their eyes pop open. And I always like to say, and I tell agents this, say to them, because every seller, when you tell them something, they've never heard anyone say, oh, you want 420? I'm going to put it on 295. They're going to go like this, Jerry, 295, you're going to say what you just did. That shocked look is what we want the entire market to do. That's what we have to do. We want to shock the market. And look, nobody likes starting. If you say to them, hey, if you start too high, how are you going to feel if we start going backwards and 2 weeks go by? You can't make your plans to move. You don't know where you stand. And then we lowered another time, So they appreciate it. When a seller understands the strategy, and believe me, because when you get confidence, as what Tom is saying, confidence sells. Like a lot of times, some of us here will get on with an agent who's first time on the platform. They're saying, hey, my seller loves it. Can you get on the phone though? I'm having trouble with the price. And one of us will get on, like if I get on and I talk to that seller, like they will immediately, when I say, look, this is a strategy. We need to drive everyone out. I know you want 520 and, you don't want Lisa to list it below 475. But I'm telling you, if we go to 395, I think, this is what, and it's like a lot of times they go, oh, well, and I don't have to sell. You're talking about that's just the strategy right. And they go, okay, well, I mean, I'm under no obligation, right? Nope. Boom. And you're going to get that with confidence because you've never presented these methods. But once you get the confidence, sellers get it. Sellers get it because this makes sense. They all went through the frustrating experience when you're buying of not knowing what you're competing against. They all know when you say, you know what, it's not just bad for you as a buyer, it's worse now that you're selling. They know it makes sense because if everybody's guessing, how can they know they got the best deal? So the whole thing, everything about it. And then when you close with the cherry on top, not only going to push the market to your property, everyone's going to compete at the highest level. Cherry on top, oh, by the way, when you tell me to accept an offer, that number you're seeing, no commission coming out of that. It's being added to it. That is just a game changer. You will find this if you use it properly. I mean, I've seen Tom Atwood. I mean, I feel like, it's given Tom like Tom sees he can kill it. He can pull market share with this. So
I want to go take 20 more, Jerry.
I know.
Yeah.
Well,
and one thing you guys will hear when you get your first one, you're going to get some tenured buyer's agents or some bossy buyer's agents asking you bold questions, which as they should. and they'll say things to me like, "Hey Tom, I know you got this property priced at 299. What's your seller really want? We don't want to play this game." You'll get statements like that. And I'll say, the seller wanted me to go through this process because they really wanted to see what the market will bear. My best advice to you would be to comp the neighborhood and advise your client to make a sensible offer. Because again, I'm trying to get everyone on the platform. The more offers, the game is, the more offers on the platform, that's when the psychological competition starts. So sometimes I've had a listing or two that we were stuck with no offers. Then we got one offer, and we're talking to the seller and we're like, "Yeah, Jerry, we just need another offer on the platform to get things going." And sometimes that's all it takes. So your job is to get as many people registered and on the platform as possible.
Absolutely. And there's also some things, we don't have a lot of time today, so we're going to be finishing up here. But please come to the training on next Wednesday on the 13th at 6 p.m. But one thing I want to say quickly is, like, for one thing, Zach is going to go into in that training, he'll talk about his experience in his first 12 months as a licensed realtor, getting 15 listings from FSBOs and expireds. And that present how you on the phone on a cold call get them to pay attention with one sentence when you talk to them, and how powerful it is. And also with John Newman, I don't know how many of you have been to John's probate class online, his webinar, but this is killer when you go into those appointments. I have people that have just crushed it, and we'll talk about that, where we have, for instance, like cash buyer companies that go in, they're not going to be able to get that. It's a property where they're never going to accept their offer. And they have someone in who they get licensed. We have several companies that have done this, and they'll get their licensed agent to pivot. They'll say, "You know what we have? Something that can sell your home in 2 weeks. I know you're not going to accept my offer. Here it is on the table. But let me, what we can do is this." And they give them a 10-minute little presentation, and they just close a super high percentage of those. And the reason why is because those people, they like the fact that you're going to make a market quickly, that we're not going to be sitting on the market. They don't want to list the property and sit. They're in a probate situation, or if it's a divorce, a lot of these different situations where cash buyers go in, and people that have to sell. And if you use this property with John Newman's front end of how you get in, and then you have this in your hand, you will get so many more listings. Because if you're doing the traditional way, you're not going to get nearly as many. So we're going to teach you about some things that you can do when you're going in with, probate, estate, divorce, the have to sell type, court situations, sale by owners, expireds, prospecting, and the details of how to get started. And so please come to our training. We thank you all for showing up today. We know everybody's busy. And there is a link that's also for registering. You can fill in your information and fill the form, and we'll get it, and we'll be able to contact you, and a link for next week's Zoom. So.
Thank you, Jerry. And anyone who wants to reach out to me personally to ask questions, agent to agent, feel free.
Any other questions?
Jerry, thank you so much. And for everybody on here, just so you know, this has been recorded and will be sent to everyone.
Thank you, Alana.
Sounds good. Are there any questions before we go that need to be answered, or we can wait till the training next week?
Tom handled them in the chat box.
Okay, sounds good. All right, excellent, everybody. Have a great day.
Thank you all. Have a great day.